So recently, I've been obsessed with the idea of telepathy. Probably a lot of my interest stems from Joe Rogan and the guests that he has on, and just talking about morphic resonance and the telepathy tapes, which really got me looking into it. And if you don't know, morphic resonance is it's a theory that basically there's this field of ideas and memories that certain organisms have. So humans have this field, animals have this field with each other, that patterns of behavior and ideas and just memories in general can be accessed by other types of that same organism, regardless of location or time. And the more times this certain pattern of behavior occurs, the more likely it is, the easier it is for that field to suggest that to an organism of the same type. So, for example, Rupert Sheldrake was the one who proposed this theory of morphic resonance, he called it. And one of the tests that they ran was they took rats and they gave them these tests. They put these rats in a water tank and basically forced them to swim to survive. And the descendants of the rats who had survived from the water tank already were more likely to survive when they were put to the test, which was expected because those genes get passed down to the offspring, and those rats would become more well-versed in that test. However, rats from outside of that lineage who never got those genes passed down, never saw those rats pass the test so they could learn via watching or anything like that, other rats started to get better at the test without being near them or being offspring of that initial group or without any ties to those original rats. Now, this could be a lot of different things, but I think this is just one of the theories that supports morphic resonance. Another test that Sheldrake ran was among humans, actually. They took these Japanese characters like symbols and words and sentences, and they also took Chinese, I believe it was Mandarin, and they gave these list of 10 words, 15 words, or something similar like that. And there were like 7 actual true characters, and then there were 8 false characters just to throw them off. And they were supposed to determine from those characters which is an actual Chinese letter or word and which is a fake one. And people were more likely to guess correctly the right word or phrase or whatever. The idea supporting this is that humans have been speaking Chinese for a long time, so through that morphic field, people are able to recognize which characters are actually words because they've been written, they've been read and spoke for so many years that the human can pull from that morphic field and determine what's real more than not. Another interesting study that they did in human beings was they took these 2 pictures and they both had hidden meanings in them. And basically they showed this control group these 2 sets of pictures. Before doing anything else, these people had never seen this picture or anything like that. And they tested the percentage of people who could see the words in the pictures. They were hidden words in those pictures. And they tested the percentage of people who could decipher what those words are in those pictures. And I think it was like 3% or something saw the hidden words in that picture. And then, well, of picture A at least. And then in picture B, there was something like 9% or something that saw that. So picture A was obviously the more difficult one with 3% of people opposed to 9 or 10% of people or whatever the other one was. So they take picture A and they broadcast it on British television to around 2 million people. And picture B, they never showed to anybody. They never did anything with that. So picture A, they took this group of people after it had been shown on British television to 2 million people or whatever it was. And they took this picture A that was shown and they put it to a group of people who had never seen that picture. They didn't see it on TV or anything like that. And the results after it had been shown to all those people on TV, the percentage of people who could see the hidden words who had no prior experience to it, it went from 3% up to 7%. And picture B, the one that was not shown on TV, they also took a test afterwards after picture A had been shown on TV, and that was the control group, picture B. So they did another study after that at the same time as picture A, and there was only a 1% increase in people that could actually see the hidden words in that picture. So the one that they showed on TV, even though the people who took the test had never seen that, didn't see it on TV, 7% as opposed to those 3% just before that had been shown was able to see those hidden words. And the idea is that just that field of ideas and completing tasks and deciphering that one image that had been seen. The theory is that those people who had taken the test afterwards were able to pull from this field, and that's why they could decipher the words in it easier. All right, now I'm no scientist, but let's run a little experiment, okay? Just play along with me. So let's look at the screen, and I'm going to think of words, and I'm not going to say those words out loud, but just because I'm thinking them so much, you, as the viewer, will then know what I'm able to think because I'm just putting that out into the field, all right?
What are you, fucking gay? Really?
I don't know if this next example is necessarily morphic resonance, but just telepathy in general, I think. So eels, the snake-looking creatures that live in seas and oceans and lakes and whatnot. Every eel, both American and European, not necessarily any other types like Japanese or Australian eels or anything like that, but American and European eels all breed in the same exact spot. The Bermuda Triangle. Without having a map or compass or anything to navigate through the world, eels will travel thousands of miles to reproduce in the Bermuda Triangle. And eels, the way that their life cycle works is they go to the Bermuda Triangle to reproduce, they reproduce, and then they die, ending their cycle of life. But it's just so fascinating to me that no matter how far away they are, they will all migrate to the Bermuda Triangle to reproduce. And it says even if eels are in a lake, like they're landlocked to where they can't get to the Bermuda Triangle, they will literally go onto land and travel by land and then back into the ocean and then go to the Bermuda Triangle. Elephants have something similar where if an elephant that's part of the tribe and it died a couple miles away or however far away, these elephants will sense that another elephant in their group had died, and they will go and find that elephant and then bury that elephant and give it a funeral. And then every year they'll come back and like almost remember that elephant. It's like coming back to his grave on that day that the elephant died. And it's just, how can elephants sense that another elephant died without any, there's no smartphones, there's no email or anything like that. How do elephants know from so far away? Their ears and the way that they stomp and stuff like that, they can communicate from like 5 miles away or something, but sometimes it's even further than that. And it's just, how did these animals sense these things happening with no tangible evidence of communication? I think that was one of my main takeaways from this video is just the amount of senses that we have or maybe once had that we don't use anymore. Like the telepathy tapes, that's a whole different, there's so much on that. It could be a whole different video or series of videos. But it's just this idea that nonverbal kids that can't speak, they can communicate through like, they have these different ways of communicating by pointing to words and writing words out and stuff like that. But the idea behind that is kids that can't communicate, they can basically put thoughts into your head and they can read the thoughts in your head. Like these parents will report these children, it's like they report this kid's reading my mind to the point where some of them think that they're losing their minds because I mean, the average person doesn't think telepathy is real, but they're experiencing it every day. Like, this kid is reading my mind. How does he know? And, like, for example, these parents will forget something in the car and they go out to get it. And this kid types on his iPad or whatever, apple, and the person goes to get an apple from the car and they didn't say anything. They thought about it and they said, "Oh, I forgot the apple in the car." And they go to the car to get it and the kid comes back and they say apple. It's like, how did you know I was going to get an apple? And it's just this idea of maybe if we weren't able to communicate, would we be able to communicate telepathically? Because I think there's pretty solid research in that if you lose one of your senses, the other senses are strengthened. Like if you go blind, your sense of smell, your hearing, those are both heightened. I'm just wondering if the ability to communicate through language has kind of weaned out that telepathic ability. And maybe since animals don't have words to communicate with necessarily, they're more open to that sense. Now, again, I'm no scientist or anything. These are just anecdotal stories and research studies and whatnot. I just thought it was an interesting subject. Morphic resonance, telepathy, animals communicating seemingly telepathically. I mean, it's all very interesting to me. And another thing I just thought of, dolphins. Like they'll be at basically SeaWorld and this instructor tells them to go do a trick, but a trick that neither one of them have ever done before. So the dolphins go underwater, they communicate with each other somehow. We don't know how they communicate, but they somehow do, whether it be telepathically or through bubbles or eye movement or whatever, we don't know. And then they both come up and they do the same trick and also a trick that they've never done before at the same time. So they're communicating somehow, but we just don't know how. And I think people are very biased to include us to be the most intelligent species, which I'm not saying that we're not, but I think we discount other animals and all of their abilities because they don't use a specific language or languages to communicate. I think that we basically write it off as being unintelligible. But yeah, that was basically my rant for this week. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next week.